the bulk of the work that we do with the law of sines and cosines is essentially saying that we've got some information about a triangle. We can calculate the rest of it. Now, one bit of information that you could also calculate is the area of a triangle. And I'm willing to bet that most of you realize that the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Drop a perpendicular here, right? Call that the height. So the area is 1/2 the base times the height. Okay. And all the other formulas that you might see in this section are just versions of this one way or another. I want to point out that this is not a section of this course that I think is hugely important, but we feel some obligation to put these formulas out there just so you see what they're doing. In particular, one of interest is sort of information that you'd use the law of cosines to do stuff with. If I have a triangle here and I know, let's say I know this side right here, let's call it A, and this side right here, let's call it B, and the angle in between them, so maybe that's angle C, then the law of cosines could be used to find this other side over here, and then you could use law of sines or law of cosines to get one of the other angles, and then once you got two angles, you got all three angles. But I ought to be able to find the area here. Well, in this case, to find the area, I'm just going to drop a perpendicular here and note that I have a right triangle, and that height now, let's call that h, so that the sine of angle C now is h over a, and so you can calculate h by just doing a times the sine of C. And once you have the height now, then the area is 1/2 the base times the height. So 1/2 b times a sine C, right? The h was just sort of a temporary thing that gets us here. This is just the information that they gave us: side length A, side length B, and angle C, and you can calculate the area. Okay. There's a bunch of other formulas that just depending on what you have. Again, to me, it boils down to, can I find a base, can I find a height, and then I, 1/2 base times height. I don't really remember all those formulas. In particular, there's one that I really have no good geometric sense for, and that's Hero's theorem or Heron's theorem, depending on what book you read. So I don't know how I can downplay it enough, but the situation here is, again, a law of cosines kind of situation, where the information that you have are the three sides, A, B, and C. Well, if you have the three sides, you can use the law of cosines to find an angle. And if you've got an angle, then I would just use this formula up here to find the area. So I feel more comfortable with this because this really feels more like 1/2 base times height, where the height was calculated using a sine. Okay. Heron's formula says this, that if you let S be what's called the semi-perimeter, so the perimeter would be, you take all the sides and add them up, the distance all the way around, and then you divide that by 2, that would be half the perimeter, so the semi-perimeter. And then the area is the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. And this is, I've never seen a good, sort of geometric intuitive proof of this. I've tried myself. I can't seem to come up with it. I can follow it algebraically. Personally, I would, in this situation, I would say I can use the law of cosines here. In fact, I know that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c, and I can solve for c. So I'm going to, the cosine of c is a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. Essentially, I've taken this term and added it over. This is subtracted and then divided by the 2ab. So using that, I can use an inverse cosine and figure out what angle C is right here. And once I have angle C, then I'm going to just do this up here. So that's the way I see finding the area for three things. Because Heron's formula, I only can write it down because I just looked it up. I don't remember it because I don't use it enough, and I don't have a good intuitive feel for it. But I do have some intuition, or I do have a feel for the law of cosines. I've used it enough. I can calculate that angle. Once I have that angle, I can calculate an altitude, 1/2 base times height. I've got the area. Okay, so there's not a lot that I want you to do with area, but just realize that you can calculate areas. If find a base, pick one side as your base, find an altitude perpendicular to that base, and 1/2 base times height. You got the area. So there you go.